Reg was bringing it on.
Okay.
So I think everybody has one.
Tricia, if you pass one of these
I'd be
down,
happy
if you take
And-
one.
Eric has something.
Yes,
Sounds
it
good here.
has one.
And I did bring, I think, some of you may have been emailed this, but the city of Novato did prepare this fact sheet
Yeah.
from some of the Q&A. So I brought a couple extra copies if anybody doesn't have one.
Yeah, I have
We'll share.
one.
Yeah, I made 5 copies, so I've got one for myself. It might be a reference for myself.
Yeah, okay. All right. So basically, Eric, what we want to do is we sent you a list of questions. Everybody at this table wants to understand, you know, really understand how you feel about this and go through the points and see if you can address our concerns. That would be great. When it's all over, everybody sitting at this table wants the best possible outcome for Novato. I can promise you that. That is what we all want. And so what we did is we sent you a list of, I think it was, I don't know, 18 questions or something. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through them real quick. You gave us, you know, pretty short answers. We'd like just to expound some on them, okay? And then we can go from there. So we'll start. The first question was, where else is this contraflow lead design medium center platform being used? Now you responded Bellevue, Washington. Is that your understanding?
It is, yeah, but maybe before we go right into the questions,
Sure.
I just kind of give a broad overview. First,
Please.
thank you so much for hosting, for having me here. I just to start things off, I think I certainly agree with what you're saying. It's the opportunity just to come together, hear from one another. I'm not here to try to convince you any particular way. You know, I'm here to hear from you, to learn from you, to figure out what is going to be the best possible solution for Novato. There's going to be things we don't see eye to eye on. That's a given. That's a given with any scenario.
Sure.
Really what I hope to gain from this is that, one, I get a better understanding of some of your concerns, and then maybe hopefully you get a better understanding of some of my thought process and where I am with this project. And I probably will say, just because it is being videotaped, I'll do my best to answer the questions. I don't want to guess or make assumptions, but I also don't want to just give you short answers. So I will, when I answer some question, I might say, I don't know, maybe this is my assumption, try to be clear there, and I'm more than glad to go back and get any questions that I can't answer. But really just want to have a discussion, and at the end of the day, you know, even if we don't agree, at least there will be the sense of, well, at least I now understand where you're coming from or your thought process. Even though you might not agree with somebody's final outcome, you could respect the process. That's what I'm hoping to gain from today.
And that's fine. And we realize you may not be able to answer everything that we have here. But with that said, if you think it's material and, you know, hopefully you'll listen to everything we have to say, then I hope you will go back and investigate it and, you know, get back to us on what you find, if you do believe it's an issue.
Yeah.
So that's all we're asking for. So this is the perfect venue to sit and talk. You know, we're going to try to keep it short, and we're not keeping it to 3 minutes, okay?
Yeah.
We can actually have a dialogue. So
Great. So the
first question was, where else are they using this design? And I mean, it's basically a contraflow median centered platform with car lanes on both sides. So where else are they using it? Yeah.
The only one that I'm aware of is the Bellevue, Washington one. And I think I sent you a Google map of it to try to see it. You know, it's not a cookie cutter example of what we're going to have in Novato. Everyone's unique. But that's the one that I've seen, and that's the one that I know staff has referenced in the past before.
Okay.
Are there other examples?
Well, and just
Quite
so you know, that's Bellevue. We have researched it. We've got scale drawings of it now. That's right off their website for the King County, and it is in no way like the design that you guys have.
There is no double weave, there are no cars going around this. It is not in any
It's not
way
even close.
an example. Could I just read you from Safety Sue Stewart's email to me? She works for Bellevue. And I asked her, is this a good example? Can we model our transit center after this? And Safety Sue said, the concept itself, meaning our concept for Novato, is viable, but it needs more tweaking in my opinion. But this concept bears no resemblance to our Bellevue facility, which is exclusive to a vacated block, 2 blocks actually, of roadway between 108th Northeast and 110th Northeast. Those were the addresses that we agreed on at the extension of Northeast 6th. It's been operational since 1985, has already been remodeled once, widening the island and decluttering all the ADA obstacles we created in the beginning because it was too narrow. We have traffic signals at both ends allowing transit their own phase. The west end is the easiest because it's a T intersection. Our island gives transit priority. This concept, meaning the Novato concept, still has transit blending with traffic. The 6-foot islands will promote jaywalking, something you don't have today because of the combination of landscape and hardscape amenities. It goes on.
In this design, the landscape and hardscape amenities.
Now, the one that we have at the moment,
And
it has some
the
areas
whole-
for jaywalking.
The whole gist of this
So that might
meeting
help.
is that our concern is that what we understand now, we've done some research, we can't find another place. I'm using one of the top transportation consultants in California right now. He can't find another place that is using this model. Now, when the technical committee got together May 28th to first discuss this, they ended the meeting by saying the contraflow concept was considered interesting and functional. It did provide for easy signal protection bus movements. However, the design was perhaps a bit too aggressive for Novato. Now, here's a bunch of technical guys sitting around saying, yeah, this is unique and, it may not be aggressive. So our concern is, if you got some place that's using it, you can give us their safety record and show us that this really unusual design is going to work. That's one thing, okay? And I will just say one more time, what your guys did with the quiet zone is the mark of what you should be doing on this. You went out and did a world-class analysis, and your guys are not trained guys, but they went out and they researched the hell out of it. They went and talked to other people with quiet zones, and they really looked at it. So that's our concern on the lack of documentation. Now, we've got some public records coming from Golden Gate. We've got some more coming from Marin Transit. We've asked this. This is the 3rd time we've asked it. They haven't been able to provide one site that is designed like this.
And it's a very valid concern, and that might actually be the case. As far as finding something, this one in Bellevue, I don't know, I have not done the extensive study myself, but I know from asking, this is the closest example that we've been set, so I think your concerns are valid. Does it mean that because it hasn't been done like we're doing it, that we shouldn't do it for? Not necessarily. It's a very valid concern, and that's one of the things that we have to weigh is it safer than what we have now? Is there a risk involved? Those are all the decisions that we have to make.
Good.
And will it work?
And will it work? I can tell you that from what I've heard so far, and I think it's in this FAQ, let's see, if on this one from the city of Novato, if you go and grab that one, the second paragraph under number 1 does specifically state the City of Novato, Golden Gate Transit Agency, Marin Transit Agency, this is the last sentence of the second paragraph, and the professional transportation engineers at Mark Thomas Engineering all agree on the proposed design.
Well-
Now, you're quoting Michael Frank, is this his,
This came from the city of Novato.
is this
Yeah.
Michael
So-
That's
Frank?
Michael Frank.
So that's, you have to understand, that is a piece of input that the
Right.
city council is gonna hear, is that all
Right.
of these agencies agree on the proposed design. So
Well,
that's one input that we have to
And,
take
and
into
let me just
account.
tell you, we have collected 32 megs of discovery
Mhm.
from Golden Gate Transit on this. There is a report that was completed by W Transit
Mhm.
for Redwood and Grant that is a traffic center analysis, and you'll see some of those documents. So there was a lot of angst at the Golden Gate Transit over this design.
Yeah,
And they are still, the best that they will say is that they're neutral on it. Because you're building it, it's your city, and their view is that this is gonna be your liability. It's not gonna be their liability because they've got 32 megs that go over the problems with this new design. So I think you should be careful on that.
Mhm.
So,
a fair point. I think what we've heard is, as an agency, they support the proposed design. If that's different, I'd be curious to hear that.
yeah, well, yeah, all right, let's not get too hung up.
Just
Go ahead.
everyone, and I think the same thing, when you read the reports, you'll see what Golden Gate Transit's issues are. When I met with Lauren Grady last week, and I pointed out the areas that I had concerns about, she agreed that those concerns had not been resolved.
Mhm.
And that until they were resolved, that there were inherent problems in this design. But what she said was, typically, transit wants a center platform, because if you can get everybody into the middle of the road and have them enter and exit buses from the middle of the road, then theoretically, buses will operate better. But in this particular situation, she agreed with the areas that I had concerns about. And I think it would help for you as a council person to talk directly to some of these people about their concerns, because I don't think Michael, in an effort to basically quash what he calls rumors, isn't going into any depth about what the concerns are, but they haven't been able to resolve the impact on the left turn lane onto Grant. Not any of the studies have. So there are actually concerns about the impact on traffic at that location if they go through with the design. So unfortunately, the fact sheet, although reassuring to the council, I think has some real errors in it.
Yeah, we're having a meeting with Mr. Frank. We're
About this.
just like this, and we're gonna go over this with
Yeah.
him, because we have another binder on that.
That'd be
Okay,
great,
so-
because I know the city's intent with this is to try to answer as many questions as possible.
Right.
They probably didn't answer all of them,
Right,
but, you know, we're
yeah,
But
trying to get the information out.
okay, all right.
There is a problem with misinformation. As we're sitting around here, we all agree that we're working for the good of the city of Novato, right?
Agreed.
Right. So we agree on that, but I don't think we come anywhere close to agreeing on the downtown Novato bus hub. So whenever Michael says that all of these agencies agree on the proposed design, that simply cannot be the case, because there are additional traffic safety engineering analysis studies going forward right now. And they are, I talked to Lauren Gradia, and she's, didn't talk to her, I emailed her. And she said that she expected this second study to not come until the end of April. So we were thinking about approving it as of April 14th, tentatively. That was the schedule, when we haven't even seen the additional traffic analysis. And I'll bet you haven't seen the first one.
Well, it is not scheduled for a specific date that I'm aware of yet. I mean, it's not a,
Tentative.
Jeannie sent me an email saying it's for April 14th.
yeah, so I can't imagine that it would come before us without all the information, all the
Okay.
reports
All
done.
right.
So I think,
So it
let's
goes
not,
back.
I can't say that, but I just said, let's not get ahead of ourselves and assume
Yeah.
that we're gonna adopt something without all
Okay.
the information.
All right,
I didn't assume that you would adopt it.
yeah, we were
I
told that by
said
the city
that
council.
Yeah.
there is an additional
That is an
engineering study
assumption.
that's not been finished
Yeah,
yet.
that wasn't an assumption. I have an email from Jeannie that says it was gonna be April 14th. But
Yeah.
that aside, so our second question was, has the staff done due diligence on other locations using this, looking at the performance and safety? So you know, I kind of look back on when the Marin Supervisors decided that they knew more than they thought they knew about SAP and computer programs, and went out and spent $30 million to experiment with bringing in a system that they could have gone to any other county and said, what are you using? And are you using SAP, and did it work for you? But they did. They went and they engineered their own little world, and when it was all over, they had a worthless piece of software that cost $30 million. I'm in risk management. That's what I've done my entire life. And if you're going to do something that is unusual or new, the best way to be assured that it is going to work is you go out and look at other things that are close to it, and look at the safety record and performance record. My fear with this is that your answer was no, nobody's done it. Everybody agrees it's going to be okay, which we dispute. I think you're making a huge mistake by taking what your own technical people said was an aggressive design and putting it in the middle of the city right now without any proven location that looks the same. So that's our real concern. You're doing something very different. We can't find another one like them, and there's no backup or actual physical examination of another site, the safety and performance. And as a risk management guy, that's troubling for me. So then we get into why was the design increased from 2 buses to 6 buses. And you referred to the April 27, 2010 City Council meeting. So I have a copy of that for you. There you go. So you mentioned it was one of the 6 points. I take it you've read that.
I have.
Yeah. So in 2010, the City Council approved using the exact same footprint, increasing it to be able to load 2 buses in each direction, one of them an articulating bus, as you did mention. They were going to just renovate the actual transit shelters. The footprint was going to stay exactly the same, and they were going to make some other changes to it. If you take a look at it, there were 6 changes that they were going to make, and you mentioned one of them. Now, this design meets all the criteria. It was actually approved in 2010, and then you guys have come up with this whole new project that is never been used anywhere before, and that will load 3 buses at the same time. When everybody's agreeing that the most buses now and projected is 6 buses an hour. Okay? And now you're taking the shuttle buses that land people safely at a sidewalk, and you're moving them to the center. So now people that used to be able to just get off and walk away on the sidewalk have to cross Redwood Boulevard. And then finally, the ridership I just sent to you is plunging at that location. So we're trying to understand. I get the impression this is a project that got started, got momentum, and nobody's looking at what's really going on right now. Do you feel like you guys are really looking at the current data and current situation to decide what's best?
I do. Going back to this, back in 2010, this certainly started the process into motion. It gave word from the city of Novato that they were interested in pursuing the improvements here. That went to Marin Transit. That started this thing into motion, probably even before it. I don't have all of the details. At that point, it was estimated that the improvements were going to be $2.5 million. So it wasn't just subtle improvements. It was a pretty significant undertaking that was being considered back in 2010. Now I should preface it, I was not on the council in 2010, so it could be very easy for me to say, I didn't do that, but you know what? Looking at this, if I were in that similar position back then, knowing that there was an opportunity for some regional funds that can come and improve a much needed and an old transit hub in the middle of downtown, I probably would have voted for it too at that time based on this. Talking about extending platforms to allow multiple buses, improve safety where pedestrian path of travel conflicts with vehicular path of travel, provide a bypass lane, allow independent bus operations in the design. Those all sound like good things to me.
I'll do what they're recommending right now.
I agree, they all sound good. Everybody around here?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All of
I'll
that,
do that.
it's
I'll
a
do
good
exactly.
ad, and we can all
We
support it.
will agree with everything that's in that document.
But you should also look at the picture of how they do it, which is what we have now only with a 15-foot bypass lane. It's drastically different than the center platform concept. And that's where concerns are raised, not rumors, but actual
And
concerns.
it doesn't take away 100 feet from each side of both Diablo and the turn on the Diablo and the turn on the Grant.
Well, and that's how projects move forward. I mean, we are 5 years later. Look at the SMART project. Look at where we are now. Are we gonna get all the bike paths and the multi-use paths that everybody thought? Things do change over time. The way that this process works is they go out and they hire a consultant, and the consultant comes up with the designs, and the designs come back. And as a council member, my role is to look at what comes before us, to ask questions, and I always tell people, I view my role as one where I ask questions of staff, but not necessarily question staff. I will ask questions to get good information. If I feel like I'm not getting good information, then that's where you start to question whether or not what you're being told is the right information. So far, the questions that I've asked and the information that I've got back and from the consultants and how this project has moved forward, I trust that they are doing that due diligence. I'm not a traffic expert. I can make phone calls and emails, and I do reach out to other folks from time to time, but I don't have the technical capabilities to be an expert in this area. So that's why I rely on the experts and ask them the questions that need to be asked.
And if some of those experts are sitting on reports so that you are not getting the adverse information, then you are completely in the dark.
And that's where you, in my opinion, would cross the line from asking questions to staff to start to question staff.
We're gonna send you a report that I really think you should take the time to read. And it's
I will
from-
read
It's
anything you send
from,
me.
it's from the Golden Gate Transit, and I think it's important that you really read it. I've got some of the documents I'll give you tonight, but I really think you should read it. And we asked for this in Discovery, and we never got it from the city of Novato. We ended up getting it from Golden Gate Transit, so.
We didn't get it from the city of Nevada. We
We
didn't
didn't
get
get
it
it from
until we
Marin
had
Transit
probed.
either.
I finally got it from Marin.
Well, you got it from
Transit
her after Golden Gate had already given it to us.
After
so.
she applied
And
for
we have
Golden Gate.
32 megs of Discovery documents from Golden Gate Transit on issues with this design, okay? When people agree, they don't create 32 megs of documents on something they go, yeah, that looks good. I mean, think about it. And that's why they did this study, which I highly recommend you read. So.
But I think it's important, if an agency like that disagrees, then the city of Novato needs a letter from the agency stating that they disagree. Not necessarily an email earlier on in the process. I hope you understand, it's difficult from a council member to make a finding on, and I'll be curious to read what you send over, but inner conversations taking place is very different from a letter on Golden Gate Transit letterhead signed by their general manager stating, we disagree with this.
Well, I gotta ask you a quick question, because I'm glad you mentioned that. If this turns out to be a disaster, and, people get hurt, and people, jaywalk and get run over by a bus going the opposite direction, or if you have some accidents at the crosswalks and buses are weaving out, who is liable for this design?
I think the liability typically in a situation like that is everybody gets sued.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens.
Right.
Regardless of liability, I'm concerned about safety. I don't want any resident in Novato otherwise to get injured.
When I talk about liability,
Yeah.
I'm an insurance guy. I'm not talking about the dollars you're gonna pay out. I'm talking about the person that is severely injured or dies. I don't, the city is a big boy. If you want to put yourself at risk for dollars, I care about the person that's trying to cross the street.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about. So the question the one thing I will have to say is you can't say, well, they said it was okay, and so I'm going to go along with it. Just like you did with the quiet zone. You could have said the federal government says the quiet zone is good.
Mhm.
Did you guys do that?
No.
No. You did an extensive evaluation of a quiet zone, and it's probably the best report I've seen come out of the city. By far, the best investigative and definitive report that I have seen. Russ did an outstanding job on that. This is that big, Eric.
And we're doing an extensive evaluation.
Well, Eric, every time I ask in Discovery where your work is and the city of Novato's work, does nothing. I can show you all the emails where I've asked in Discovery.
Let me speak very plainly. I got an email today that shows that Lauren Gradia was aware of this traffic analysis being done. And this traffic analysis was supposed to be presented to the Technical Advisory Committee. We have a representative, Elizabeth Dunn, on that Technical Advisory Committee. So if the city of Novato is not aware of this traffic analysis, then somebody is just not home. Somebody is just not home because there are huge problems having to do with blind spots.
We'll give you,
We'll go on.
I've got
That's an easy
Yeah.
solution. Give me, I don't know what
Well,
traffic
here,
study this is. I don't
I-
know.
Here's the executive summary.
yeah,
Perfect.
and no, but here's even the Cliff Notes version. This
That's
is one
the
for
third one. He
everybody.
has it.
Okay, and what I've highlighted, I think you're gonna find really surprising, because one is existing and one is proposed.
Mhm.
So look at site distance.
Mhm.
Existing, adequate. Proposed, northbound, obstructed. Southbound, obstructed. They're gonna have to put traffic signals in where the buses are exiting that are gonna stop people at the crosswalk so that the buses can get out.
Mhm.
So you're now gonna have a traffic signal in the middle of the block. In the middle of the block, you're gonna have a traffic signal at the Long. You're gonna have a traffic signal at the middle of Redwood and in between Grant and the Long, and you're gonna have a traffic light at Grant. So this is less of a site, this is much more of a site problem. They have a diagram in this that shows, because when the bus is weaving and coming over, they show a drawing that has blind spots. Those are the blind spots.
Blind spots for the buses. They can't see, so they're
Do you know
depending on
what the blind
electronic
spots are right now for the current bus stop?
I haven't looked at it.
There's none.
Mhm.
They can be improved, but there's no blind spot.
Mhm.
Okay, so then if you take a look at the next one, left turn, storage and merge distances. So this footprint is not the same footprint as what's there now. It's gonna be 100 feet longer, okay? Adding the side adding where the shuttles come to the center platform is a real deceptive thing. And the only reason I say that is this thing is 100 feet longer in the middle of Redwood and Grant, okay? So it's clear, it's not the same footprint that's there right now. So the northbound merges 240 feet from the turning. First part, you can get into the turning. The new one, it's down to 150 feet, okay? When you read the transit report, they're gonna say the buses are gonna have almost an impossible time with people queuing in, and they're even taking the keep clear off the pavement now. That's what they've decided to do, and they're gonna rely on this traffic light only. So literally what we're doing is we're cutting big parts of the turning lane and merging out of the traffic lanes right now to put this bus stop in. Okay? And then finally, this is the one I found really interesting, because everybody keeps saying we're doing this bus stop because the buses may have a problem inside the facility with each other, getting past each other. So W-Trans says, impeded flow within the transit center, none for the existing. For the proposed, queued buses may impede buses to enter the facility. So you've got a point where a weave bus waiting to get out will prevent the bus coming in from the other side of the weave. And they'll have to stop and wait. They won't be able to enter the facility. So, you know, when I look at this, I say we're taking something that works and we're actually creating something that has more problems. I mean, how do you read this?
I don't know if I agree that it has more problems. Both of these are going to be mitigated, one with traffic signals, one with yield markings. So by their study,
Well, how is left turn?
I haven't brought that one up.
Yeah?
I agree with you that that left turn lane is going to be shorter.
In both directions.
Last
Both
one
directions.
is-
It's shorter on the
Probably.
left. Yeah,
I
it's shorter on the
definitely
left.
know that the left turn lane
Just look,
from
I'll make this
Redwood
down.
onto Grant is going to be shorter. And I think everybody has agreed that that is the case. Nobody's trying to hide that.
Well, you know
But
what?
they've also said that it's a problem. In the conversation I had
Absolutely,
with Lauren Gradia, to in any way go ahead with the center platform design without a solution to both the problems in the report that came out last November that Al has, that I couldn't get even in that meeting with Lauren Gradia.
No,
I asked
sorry,
specifically.
sorry to interrupt. I don't, who is Lauren Grady? I
She's
don't
the
know.
Marin Transit head of the project.
Marin Transit.
Yeah.
So when I was trying to get information, it was suggested to me by the city of Novato that I just talk directly with them, so they invited me to come and talk about the project. And yet, the November report, when I was asking questions about traffic being impeded and design conflicts, I never saw this report. I didn't see this report until both Al and Pam did formal records requests, and then it finally arrived.
And, you know, we only got it from Golden Gate.
Mhm.
We
Not
never
from
got it
Golden
from the
Transit.
city of Novato, and we never got it from Marin Transit. And
I finally did.
And so if I understand correctly, because you never got it from the city of Novato, the question is whether or not the city of Novato ever saw it? Is that?
I'm wondering.
yeah, I would be very, very interested to see, and if you could find out if anybody on city staff saw that November report in
Absolutely.
2011. I mean,
Yes,
2014, which we'll send to you.
2014. So it's going to be this one with the footer here.
Yes,
Redwood
right.
and Grant Transit Center
Yeah.
traffic analysis
It was
for
the
Golden
date,
Gate Bridge and Highway Transportation.
and the date of the report is November 21st,
I will certainly ask that.
okay?
2000.
Yeah, I would be very interested, and really the issue is, if you don't have this report, why would that be?
Mhm.
I mean, you know, going back to quiet zones again, you're doing this extensive quiet zone, excellent review, and this seems like it's just, we'll let other people look at this and we're just gonna go along with it. That's the impression I'm getting.
Yeah.
So,
You know, I'll certainly ask that. I can tell you the way that I do read this though is yes, it does say northbound obstructed, southbound obstructed, but it's mitigated. And mitigated typically means that it's brought to a point where it's no longer an issue. Now, whether or not left turn storage and merging distances are shorter, yes, that is the case. What is the impact of that? I don't know, maybe that's somewhere else in this report.
it is, trust me. Golden Gate's very concerned about merging with this. They think it's gonna be a real issue. Yeah.
I have two real concerns. First of all, mitigation is doing what you can do to correct, but it does not in any sense fully correct the problem.
Right.
The second, I've been worried about the safety of pedestrians from the very beginning. I've been
I still am.
basically jumping up
I'm worried,
and down
I'm
for a
worried
year
every
and a half.
day.
I'm worried too, and
Right
that's one of
now.
the
About
reasons
that.
why I'm interested in making the improvements.
I keep getting patted on the head and told that the experts have it all under control, so just relax. Well, these experts say that the buses cannot see to exit the facility using their mirrors and their naked eye. They cannot, they are powerless without the traffic signal. So if there's a power outage, what happens? Do they all just sit there until the traffic signals come back? Or do they all just go right by the Novato Transit Center because it's not safe to go in and get out again?
Yeah.
Traffic lights do
That's a great
go
question.
out.
I haven't seen where in the report it says that they can't see. Maybe I.
Well, that's the
I-
blind
That's
spot.
what the-
Look at the blind
that's what
spot.
the-
That's what that drawing we gave
drawing
you.
was.
There's this there.
There you go.
Everywhere you see a cross
That's all
line
blind.
is a blind spot for
They
the bus
can't
driver.
see.
They can't see anything.
And they can't see jaywalkers in that area.
No.
either. So,
And just so you know, I know you say they're mitigated, but I look at that paper that you're looking at, the summary, and I say, we're taking something that isn't broken, we're breaking it, and then we're trying to figure out how to fix it after we break it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's pretty much the way I see it.
It's a fair assessment. I disagree with that. And,
Okay, all right. Well,
in looking at this, I don't see that by this drawing, it's saying they cannot see. It is saying there is
well,
site.
you can read the report.
Yeah.
Read the report.
This simply says site obstruction.
That's
That
the
means they
polite
cannot
way,
see.
it's the polite way, it's probably the technical way of saying you can't see. But if you read the report, you will definitely see where they say they cannot rely on visual or mirrors. So, okay, so we'll go to the next question. Thank you, we appreciate your input. I asked you, can you please identify the ridership that is being used to justify the demand need for increasing the bus stops to 6 buses independently operating? And you said, I think the fact that one bus has to remain stopped behind another bus while it loads and unloads is justification to go to 3 buses. That's what you said. So I just sent you a Marin letter to the editor that analyzed the ridership. Did you look at that?
I didn't get a chance to look at it yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you
Did you
should.
send that today or?
I sent it yesterday.
Yesterday, okay.
And
I will take
it
a
was
look.
in the Marin IJ.
Mhm.
So,
I had a busy day at work today.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I know you got a daytime job. The ridership on the 49 bus is down 34% from last year. Golden Gate is down 5.6%. The 71 bus is down 2%. But when SMART starts, the 71 bus is 90% Novato to San Rafael to Novato. If you look at the ridership, and on top of it all, that particular bus stop ridership has plunged 17% since 2010 to 2014. So we've got a declining ridership that has declined even more steeply for the 49 bus. We have the SMART train getting ready to start. And it's going to take away a great deal of ridership on one of the main lanes out of that bus station. Why wouldn't you fix safety now and wait until SMART starts up? Let that happen and see how that's going to impact this bus stop before we spend $4 million there. Why wouldn't you do that?
This is not a 1 or 2 year project to solve the issue immediately at hand. This is much forward looking. I mean, our current facility has been there for almost 40 years. This new facility is going to be there for another 40 years. And sometimes projects like this do take time. I'll use SMART as an example. One of the reasons why it was chosen to be put where it is because of Fireman's Fund. Well, if you read what's happening in the paper, there's not a lot of activity happening at Fireman's Fund right now. Does that mean that we say, all right, let's immediately scrap that station altogether? No, we have already started the process. Does it make perfect sense? Probably not. But in the long term, having that station there could be a driver to bring in more businesses at that area. This project, as you know, started back in 2010. Maybe that's when the ridership started to trickle. maybe one of the reasons why the ridership is as low as it is because people don't feel safe there, because there aren't lights, it's not well lit during the evening time. The amenities aren't very great. There's all sorts of reasons. So in my position as a council member, I look at it not what has been the ridership in the past year or 2 years, but what is going to be the 30-year outlook. And sometimes you don't always get it right. It's you try to do your best.
Okay.
Yeah, just a
Yeah,
little
go.
follow-up on
Go
that.
ahead.
So participating in the CBTP allowed me to look at this from a different perspective, from the perspective of people who have no other form of transportation. And the complaints that were consistent in the 2015 CBTP and the 2011 Marin Transit Study were that just getting to the stop is impossible for someone with mobility issues, but especially for someone in a wheelchair. If we're going to make a change that's this dramatic, and we're going to make it in a way that involves risk that is untested and unproven, shouldn't we at least be able to get people to the stop? Because your issue of maybe people don't go there because it's spooky and there are people like vagrants sleep there and use drugs there, that's all true. But the real reason that they don't get there are the ones that need the stop the most can't. And that was something I think that both Pat Eklund and Jean McLeany talked about when we presented the CBTP. There was a gentleman named Peter, and I guess his wheelchair almost tipped over. So I got into the whole concept of transportation from the point of view of I want to understand what we really do need, and then see if the money is moving in a direction for actual needs today. It's still going to be expensive, even if you don't do this grand overhaul, which I don't agree with, the center platform. It's still going to cost at least $3 million to do the 2010 fix, which doesn't involve risk, which has a proven design, and which would still meet all the criteria of what we have today because it would keep shuttles on the side. But we could certainly then focus on grants that would actually get people to the stop area. Our attention is in the wrong direction. And you're talking a ridership decrease of 1,000. We originally had 1,200 passengers a day at that stop. We're down to 1,000 now. And it's continuing to go down. So it either means that we're not looking at the right things. It's not just a question of the fact that we really let the stop go. And frankly, no one cleans it. I went there the other day. There's old bicycle parts that are locked to something that have been there for months now. The shelter itself is falling down on top of people. It's a great place if you're a drug user because you could tuck yourself in and get high and no one would see you. We could have at least done those things 3 years ago. 3 years ago, right, we got the original, was it $985,000? We could have put some effort into making it safe, making it more visible. I think we've got cameras in there, so at least the cops can see in when they look. What we keep saying, though, to folks is, we're not going to do anything until we do this really big thing. And so I'm asking you as a council member to think smarter, not just think forward-thinking, but realize you need to do something now. You can safen the crosswalk now. You can fix the parts that are really disheveled and just inappropriately in disrepair now, and then you can take the time to read these reports without necessarily questioning the value of staff's input, because sometimes it's important to look deeper into an issue when you've got constituents that are concerned. And everybody around this table has put in hundreds of hours now reading about transportation. So it's not like a fly-by-night thing between the records requests and the reports. And I never thought I'd be studying this stuff at my age, but we're doing it because we want to do good. So I know you want to be forward-thinking, and I agree with you that sometimes you have to look forward, but we've got real problems on the table right now that we could actually solve.
Yeah. Now, could we have done it 3 years ago? It's possible. I would have to go back and find out if there were any restrictions on those funds.
No, there weren't.
I do know that when the city of Arnold did receive those funds, they received those funds to move forward with the project that had been envisioned back in 2010 that at that time was estimated to be $2.5 million. So it would have taken deliberate council action at that time to inform Marin Transit and the other agencies, hold on, put the brakes on, we want to do something different, so could that have happened 3 years ago? I don't know, it sounds like maybe it could have.
Hey, Marin Transit says those funds have been available since they were awarded to the city of Novato to make safety improvements and any other improvements that are required at that bus stop. So they've been sitting in the bank, doing absolutely nothing, while we sit around and people plan this grandiose bus stop.
So that would have taken council action at some point to say, we want to go a different direction. That didn't happen. Now, here we are where we are. In order to make that strategic shift, it probably still could, at any time, council could say, I mean, it would be very interesting in our relationship with other jurisdictions after all of this work to make that shift. Personally, I believe at this point, it would take longer to construct just those improvements than to continue with what we have ahead of us. That's my personal opinion.
You really believe it would take less time to completely rebuild this facility than to renovate it?
We don't have a plan for just the basic renovation, and knowing how things move, I'm just saying, it could possibly take longer at this stage of the game, because we would have to almost decide to start over. And there's a lot of public meetings that would need to take place.
You have drawings from 2010 that are the basic outline and description of exactly the work that needs to be done and how it should be done with dimension, measurement.
Those haven't gone before design review, they haven't gone before Marin Transit. So I could be wrong. I'm just saying, at this stage in the game and knowing how things work, it could take longer.
And you know what the impression people in the city of Novato get when we hear something like that? We get the impression that staff gets things going and gets them moving to the point that nothing else but that can be done. That's the impression we get.
Well, anything could be done. Council, at any time, council could say, we don't want to do this.
Well, let me ask
I'm not in that mode.
Well, let me ask you something. Will you check to see from a reliable source whether what was suggested and recommended and approved by the city council to be done in 2010 would take longer than what you're working on right now?
If we did an about face and
Right.
made that decision,
Yeah.
I'd be more than glad to ask that.
Yeah. Now, there may be some CEQA issues with this bus new design that you guys may not know about. Okay, so there may be some things that you're gonna see coming forward because it is not the same footprint. Okay, so there may be some CEQA issues on this new design, so keep that in mind.
And with regards to footprint, I think it could be an issue of semantics here. My opinion of footprint is, if a size 12 shoe steps in a size 11 shoe footprint, is that still in the same footprint? Yes. Is it a little bit larger? Yes. Looking at this map, it is very clear. All you have to do is look at the overlay and realize, oh, there are spots that are taking up more space than the previous one. To me, that's not definition of footprint. If you said, is this exactly the same size as what we have today? No. Is it in the same footprint? Yes. So that might be a difference of opinion or semantics, but just to put it out there.
No, I've already heard the argument that when you take the shuttle sites and you add them with Redwood and Grant, but I got news for you. When people of the city of Novato see this 100-foot longer, huge bus station in the middle of Redwood and Grant, they aren't going to say, oh gosh, they must have added the footprints on both sides. They're going to look and say, what the hell is it? I mean, I hate to say that.
Believe me, I know that we're going to hear it, because anytime, and this is a very visible area, and change is hard when you see it, and when you're used to a certain thing. So I can tell you right now, if this thing moves forward and once it starts getting constructed, I'm going to get emails, I'm going to get phone calls, people are going to come to our council. I know that's going to happen. That's going to happen with any project.
Right, but the impression everybody gets is we don't need 3 buses loading in each direction. We don't need it. You're saying somewhere down the road we may need it. I think that's your position.
No, I'm saying right now we have capacity for 3 buses in each direction. And with the new design, there's capacity for 3 buses.
Now, Michael Frank in his thing says that the current bus stop can handle 60 buses an hour. Okay, so I'm a little confused by that. If the current bus stop can handle 60 buses an hour, we have 6 buses an hour right now. And projected forward, we have 6 buses an hour. Why are we spending $5 million, $4 million if we can already do 60 buses an hour?
Have you seen the station and the condition that it's in right
It's
now?
in terrible condition.
I'm not saying it doesn't have to be renovated. If you told me, if you came to me right now and said, I'm gonna do what was proposed in 2010, I would close this book, you would never hear from
Go on
me again.
vacation.
Yeah,
I have other things to do, Eric.
yeah.
If you came to me and said, that's what I'm gonna do, because it makes sense, it's the same footprint, we already have the tried and truths tested, 35 years of operation there. I mean, if you look at the safety issues, I can't find a single safety issue that's happened, and God knows why somebody hasn't been hit at that crosswalk. Okay, that's just pure luck. But, okay, well, we definitely disagree on that. But I'll tell you, if you came to me and you said, Al, I've looked at this, you know, I can save $1 million, and I'm gonna do exactly what they decided to do in 2010, when Elizabeth Dunn is the person that presented this, if you take a look, okay?
So in 2010, just so we're talking about the same thing, they proposed $2.5 million.
Right.
Okay, right now the construction cost for this facility is $2.8 million.
Oh, wait, you better do a little research there.
So,
That is incorrect.
and
Tina,
well,
you
it's
know
not
that one.
exactly incorrect. So when I asked Lauren, because I brought in 5 different figures, because there's a range from that number up to 5 million, what she said was, Mr. Frank asked her for a figure that didn't include construction overhead costs. And there was another one
Design?
missing. Either planning or design. So the figure that he asked her to give him for this is a misleading figure.
Yes.
And you can't do stuff, I know his intentions are not to upset people, but his effect is very upsetting. It was like when some folks from the council said they didn't know how tall the Whole Foods building was gonna be. And this sucker's going to be big when it doesn't need to be. When we can have the same capacity, when we can manage, Lauren said without any doubt, they can't afford to push 60 buses an hour through there. They don't have the money to increase that capacity. So instead, what we're really saying to ourselves is, we absolutely need it cleaned up, we absolutely need it redesigned, we need crosswalks that are
GPS,
safe.
I mean, you guys did a CPTP study.
That's part of
Okay,
Orange
you went-
Transit's
well-
long-term plan.
Okay,
Right,
so,
but they never mentioned building a grandiose bus stop in that thing. That was only inserted by city staff after the fact.
and that was, I can explain that, but let's not go into how that got into the CDTP, because that's a whole separate issue, because none of us were told when we participated as stakeholders that there was a separate technical advisory group. But I believe that was not done with bad intent, now that I understand the funding. What I'm saying is, Mr. Frank missed the point. The point was not that people don't want it upgraded, or overhauled, or rebuilt, or made safer, or, dear God, made more accessible. Like, get the path of travel thing in place, get people to the bus stop. That's what's really missing from all of this, at least based on both the 2011 and the CBTP reports. But what he implies here is, this is a safer design. And in the existing facility, he refers to it as 2 in central platform. There is no central platform. Our existing stop does not have a central platform. Like, I want to know, did he walk downtown and actually go to the stop and think, how am I going to use adjectives to describe
I think
this in a
central
fact sheet?
median, center median is probably,
It's
2 platforms
it's
in
2
the center
platforms.
median. Is that what you mean?
no, that says bus boarding locations.
2 platforms in the central median?
I
Rather than
can't
two
comment
in
exactly what was
central
meant, I'm making an assumption here. It says bus boarding locations. The existing facility has 6 total, 3 in each direction. Of the 3 in each direction, there are 2 in the central platform, and I'm guessing it means center area, and then 1 curbside.
But if you weren't me and you hadn't walked down to the bus stop and you didn't understand, you would think I was getting like for like. You understand the way that he's represented the fact sheet? It's not like for like.
And
We
Eric,
have,
Eric, I'll tell you one thing. No, I'll tell you one thing. I will bet you $10,000 cash right now
I don't have the money,
that
yeah.
that bus stop will cost more than $2.8 million. And I think,
I would not make that bet.
I think,
Because I've seen projects been built, you know what, I've done work on my own house that I thought was gonna cost a certain number, and I'll tell you,
Right.
it cost an awful lot. That happens. Now,
okay.
the estimate from 2010 had no schematics, it had a layout.
Right.
And it was a ballpark figure. That's
Right.
That's how things happen. Look at how much we thought SMART was gonna cost and what we were gonna get in the end of it. Large projects like that, they're hard to estimate until you actually have the design and you go out to bid.
well, I would go even further. I would ask you to call Marin Transit and ask them if they will agree that this bus plan is gonna cost $2.8 million. Would you do that?
Sure. I don't know that it matters though, but I
It does matter. The city put out a
Argue it
document.
both ways.
Why wouldn't that matter? The city has put out a document saying that this is gonna cost $2.8 million.
It says the estimated construction cost is $2.8 million.
Well, ask Marin Transit what the
I'd be more than
estimated
glad to.
construction cost
I'd be
is.
more than glad to.
And what if they're different?
Then would you like me to get back to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be more than glad. I will, so do you want me to find out where this number came from essentially?
We know where it came from.
Mhm.
Marin Transit told us exactly what Michael Frank asked them for.
Okay, which was a construction cost.
He
not
asked
including-
for not all the costs for the project.
That's.
So what
how
is
it's
your
separated
understanding of the 2.8 million?
The
out.
2.8,
3.6.
yeah, it is not all of the costs that are known today for that bus station.
Mhm.
I'll just characterize it as that.
Well, I know there was a $300,000 consultant, so I
No,
mean, there's lots of other
I'm
numbers.
talking about to build this
To build it?
thing out, it is, 2.8 does not encompass all the dollars that are gonna be required to build a station.
Yeah.
Well, what I see is that
On the record dollars.
things are pretty much entrenched. And even though we have an overwhelming number of facts which can refute 4, 5, 6 different things in this fact sheet, and I have it and I have it in my computer and so on, it's just not gonna make any difference. So I guess that means that you're gonna go ahead, kind of like the charge of the light brigade. And we're going to go ahead and build this project despite all of these fundamental facts which say, whoa, wait, this is a red flag. This thing won't work whenever the traffic lights, there's an outage. We're going to go ahead and do it because we're committed to it, and we are going to not believe the other people's statistics. We're going to say, well, you know, that there must be something wrong with that. So it must be the fact that this is a beautiful facility. What's been designed is really slick. I like it. I think it's clean line. I think it'll be a gateway. It will be a gateway. That's what the city wants. They want a gateway to the city through Redwood. And I understand that. I think that's a wonderful thing. I just wish that they could get a gateway that was actually practical. You know, the kind of lurid gowns that, who's the singer with the, oh, let's just say a glitzy Hollywood dame, a celebrity, the kind of clothes she would wear. Well, we're kind of looking for that showiness in Nevada because we want an identity. We want people to recognize us. But you know, we can't just have that gown. We've got to have a gown that actually zips up, covers everything, and it's practical and you can walk in it. And this one actually has to work where there's two lanes of traffic going each direction, buzzing around all these people trying to get across the main street. So it's
Okay,
It's different.
all right. Well,
Real quick, just.
yeah, go ahead.
I did write down the 2 questions, I want to make sure I got them. So the first question I'm going to get information back is about whether or not the city of Novato has seen this W-Trans
And you're
report.
gonna read it, right?
Yeah, well, do you have a full electronic copy? or do you
Yeah,
want me to-
I have a full electronic
Okay.
copy, I'll send it to you.
Great, and then the other question is with regards to the 2.8 million construction costs. I thought there was another one that I wrote, that maybe we were in the conversation of talking, did I miss anything?
Double check with Marin Transit which costs were not included in the
Yeah,
2.8
yeah.
million. Just
Yeah.
give Lauren Grady a call and say, I understand some costs were not included in the 2.8 million on our fact sheet. What are those and what do they amount to?
Okay,
And
so,
ask-
and I might not go the route of calling Lauren Grady directly, there's typically a protocol that we follow.
What is the protocol?
We have Madeline Kellner is actually on the Marin Transit Board. Now, there's nothing that would prohibit me, I don't believe there's a council policy that prohibits me from asking that question directly.
I
But out of,
can send you her email.
that's
and
fine,
it's
but
good.
out of respect to another council member who serves on that board, I will typically reach out to that person first and say, would you like me to go through you, would you like me to ask the, it's just a matter of respect and chain of command. And she might say, oh, no, go ahead, email her directly, but
There we go.
I will follow that, just so you know. So if you hear that from Lauren that, oh, Eric never reached out to me, it might be through a different path.
I
But I
will
will try to
take
get the
that.
answer.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
Mhm.
All right, just moving on to the next question. Has the city staff completed analysis of the projected impact of SMART on ridership at Redwood and Grant?
Mhm.
And you wrote back, not that I'm aware of, council has not asked.
Mhm.
Which number?
I guess my question is, why not? I mean, don't you think that's material to this bus stop?
The exact question again was?
The potential impact of SMART
Mhm.
on this bus station. And everything points, I sent you, oh, the other thing, you need to read my, I sent it to you directly,
Mhm.
my Marin letter to the
I
editor.
will jump.
Okay, because it's got all the ridership data, so
Mhm.
you don't have to guess what the ridership is like.
And was that data,
It's
Golden
all-
Gate Transit, Marin Transit?
It's
or-
all documented, it's both Golden Gate and Marin Transit, and I identify the reports it's from.
Okay.
In fact, Golden Gate Transit, you can go on their website, and in 5 minutes, you can look at all their ridership data. It took me 2.5 days to find out what Marin Transit's numbers were, and about 100 Google searches.
Yeah. I
Okay?
think Marin Transit numbers are up as a whole, from what I remember hearing.
They are, but
Yeah.
they're not up in Nevada.
Mhm.
Okay, they're up everywhere else. Novato has 3 of the 4 worst performing routes in Marin. Okay, so yeah, that's a big picture thing. Marin Transit's doing very well in San Rafael, not at all up here.
Mhm.
So my question is, SMART, we're paying what now, $700 million for SMART, which is gonna be basically to take cars and buses off the road on 101, okay? If people have a choice of getting on a bus and weaving into traffic and fighting their way down to San Rafael, or they can get on the SMART train, have Wi-Fi, drink coffee, eat something, and be down to San Rafael quicker than you're ever gonna be on a bus. If we're building SMART, why aren't we looking at that and saying, I'm not even saying don't do this, I'm saying let SMART get built before you make this big of an investment in this bus stop and see if it still makes sense after it's over. And to me, this is a significant outside force that can impact this project. And the last thing we want is a big-ass bus station that's empty, okay, dead in the center of town, when, I mean, that's a bus parking lot, basically what it is, and we're gonna put it dead in the center of the town. If it's being used, that's one thing. If the ridership goes like that because of SMART, what we built this bus stop that has this massive view in the middle of town, and may not be used. So I guess I'd really like to understand why you wouldn't wait until SMART is operational before you do that.
Like I said, we started this process back in 2010. I don't know when this will, even if it comes before council and council says, yeah, we're good, we still don't have the money. We still just have the 900,000. So we still need to determine, all right, what are the potential funding sources for the rest of the funds to actually get this thing built?
You have the money. During the CBTP, what Derek McGill, Derek, the new Linda Jackson, said is that the three agencies are going to give you their excess lifeline funds. So there is actually money now dedicated to the project, which is why the urgency in gathering information about safety issues. This is not about shutting down the renovation of the Novato bus hub. That's critical. It's about making the right decision about how to renovate it. So there is money there for it. Now, I understood Derek to say that to the council when the CBTP was approved, that it's been banked just for us. Is that not?
Golden Gate has
That's news to me.
Golden Gate has turned over their lifeline funds, and Marin Transit has turned over their lifeline funds.
Golden Gate for the last 2 years, they didn't have projects.
Right. And
it's
so
2 years.
now, because the city did a CBTP, which everybody said, gee, what's gonna come out of this? And, you know, I think the response we kept getting is, how can we possibly figure out what can come out of this? Now, I would say that you're very close to being funded on this project.
I probably agree with that. I don't think the funds are locked in yet. They might be getting ready, but I have not received confirmation that the city of Novato is in, or the funds are set aside in account.
Well, let's not get sidetracked. Let's go back to SMART, because that's the question.
Even if once you get the project approved and the construction's layout ready to go, that makes it project ready and it's easier to secure funding even after the fact. So I do believe that once we get to that point, the next step would be to go and find the funding. Do we wait until SMART is operational? No, I don't think that we need to.
Okay, but why, if you got something that's of significant potential impact, that's an outside factor that hasn't been considered, why wouldn't you just look at it and say, in a quiet zone, you did this elaborate study that was beautiful. I mean, really, really dug down and said, let's see, you know, even though the federal government says this is safe, let's go out and really make sure it's safe. You run projects all the time in private business. If you're doing a project and suddenly some big outstanding force on the outside is looming and it will have an impact on what you're doing, wouldn't you at least study it to see what the potential impact is?
Yes, I would. That's a different analogy there, but in this case, I believe that there are needs that need to be solved with that transit facility that have been identified going back over 5 years. We've gotten to the point that we are today. I'm not in a position to halt or stop the project. I could be in that position, but from what I've heard and what I've seen, even with SMART coming, I believe that we need to make those improvements to our downtown hub.
You know, logic has to rear its ugly head sometime in this discussion. The thing that sort of bothers me is you're talking in terms of projects as if it's a monolithic thing and it either gets done or it doesn't. We brought forward a bunch of things that say, wait a minute, before you commit, let's factor these things in. As an engineer, I don't play poker and bet all my money the first hand I'm dealt. Basically, that's what we're doing with this. If you're smart, you put in the architecture, so when the uncertainty, as Al is very well aware of, here we're projecting 2035, good luck. They'll even admit they don't know what's going to happen. So why would we commit to this thing, waste money, which really doesn't go down well? Why can't we adopt an architecture where we could add on to it later or rearrange the furniture, but at the same time, not spend something on an absolutely blind bet. And that's pretty much what we have here. And that bothers me because that's what we're doing here from a project point of view. It's not smart. You would fail the course because of the uncertainty factor. It's just that simple. And the short-term harm by not doing it doesn't appear to be that significant. It can't get built, the money is still there, it's committed. Sometimes someone's got to say, why are we throwing this money away? And the problem that it engenders is a lack of respect for the value of a dollar, quite frankly. A lot of these people that live here, you have city employees that on the average make twice what the average person does here in this city. And dollars are dear. And we're sitting here saying, we're going to spend this money, it's not a big deal. Yet we're sitting here in a city that without Major F has, what, $4 million structural deficit?
$2 million.
And so, sometime we have to act prudently, I would say. And I think prudently is the operative word, because what I'm hearing is if we don't do it now, there's a bad consequence potentially later on. What Al's bringing up about smart really sort of makes the discussion, ignoring it, ludicrous, because on the other hand, you're saying, not you, but the transit people are saying, we want an integrated plan. And then here is Novato City Council potentially saying, we're not going to pay any attention to that. And the hypocrisy is not lost on people. So I think perhaps a measured approach to this, rather than just rolling the dice once and hoping we're successful, I think that would be a more prudent approach. And I think it would engender, quite frankly, and we saw it at this Northwest Quadrant thing, when the city and the city council and everybody listen, people are generally pretty easy to work with. They really are. But here, we've got this huge thing, and it's just a mess. And people, they've developed a lack of trust. And you and I both know we need as much of that as we can get. So, from my perspective, I would say, hey, let's take 6 months off and clear out the underbrush here. And then, if it looks like it's the prudent thing to do, let's do it. But right now, it's this sort of uncertainty. Well, if we have to go back, we're going to lose this or we're going to lose that. I think most of Novato can live with that, quite frankly.
And I think you bring up some valid concerns. I, at this point, don't think that we should spend more money to try to figure out what is an unknown of smart ridership. I mean, if you can answer that question, there's a lot of people in Marin and Sonoma that would love to have that answer.
Oh, sure.
It's an unknown. It is a big unknown. So we're potentially and yes, even with an unknown, there's still ways to study it. There's still ways to do regression analysis and try to figure out and run some different scenarios and come up with some options there. At the same time, I feel that from what I've seen and heard, now it hasn't come to council, we haven't made a final decision, but from what I've seen and what I've said in previous council meetings is I've liked what I've seen. I like the improvements that are being proposed. Are there more questions to be answered? Yes. Do I want to continue to get those questions answered? Yes, but I'm not in the camp of we need to halt this project at this point. I want to continue to do research. I'm not in the camp of approved, done. We need to do some more work. We need to ask some more questions. I need to make sure I've done all of my due diligence. But I don't want to hide the fact that I'm entirely neutral. I think you wouldn't have had me come and no.
We don't consider you neutral.
Yeah.
We consider you an advocate for this project. I mean, that's our view of you.
And if you did a regression analysis, it'd say
if
this
we're
thing is
wrong,
going to fail.
Yeah, I mean, if we're wrong, basically we've sat here and we said, you're proposing building a bus station that we can't find this design anywhere else in the United States. So therefore, there is no safety data or operational data to know whether and how it's gonna work, okay? And then you say, we're not gonna look at the smart train, when the whole basis of what John said is it's supposed to be an integration. You're supposed to be taking into consideration that there is a train that we're spending $700 million on and how that's gonna impact. I mean, to me, it still I get the impression of we're willing to try something that's never been tried before with, and you can ask Marin Supervisors how that went when they tried the SAP project that nobody else was using anywhere else. And then you're saying, I'm gonna ignore SMART, which is a $700 million project to link Marin by ways other than a highway. I mean, to me, I'm just sitting here struggling. I'll be honest with you. I'm struggling how you can just discount both those things and say they aren't important.
Well, I'm not saying they're not important, I'm not saying we're gonna ignore them. I am saying that I'm not interested in spending additional money to try to study an unknown. Sometimes infrastructure gets built in different phases at different times. If we had a blank slate and I could lay out Novato however I wanted to, does it make sense to have bus right next to train? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do we have a blank slate in which we can work and all of the land to choose from? No, we don't.
Okay. So you still, I mean, sitting here today, you don't believe we should look at the potential impact of SMART on this station?
Oh, we should look at it. I don't think that we should spend money, additional money at this point to study it.
Okay.
Could I say something? This plan isn't being built because of demand or even projected demand. This project is being built because of the theoretical needs through the transit districts for bus bypass lanes and curb space and so on. And the short range transit plan, the draft that's going on right now, their number one priority is this, basically, to increase the frequency in the corridors. And the 101 corridor, the 15-minute frequencies go all the way up to Redwood. And so the next step is to go up through Novato. So if you change from 30-minute frequencies to 15-minute frequencies, you automatically have twice as many buses. So this project is really to make a gateway for the city, all right, but this is to make it work for the transit agency's dreams and goals. Their goal is to double bus ridership. I don't necessarily believe that giving away the prime, the spine of Novato to the transit agencies is a good idea without some thought. I mean, they're smart. They've got a huge number of consultants, and the consultants, in my opinion, are withholding negative information. You're getting nothing but yes men, and you're not aggressive enough to go in there and dig for the negative stuff. And we're handing it to you on a platter, so that if you don't take this under consideration, then your due diligence level has gone way up at this point, because you are aware of the major pitfalls and problems here. It is, we're doing our best to let you know what a disaster this can be.
And I'd be curious, I have not, and maybe I missed, I have not been handed anything yet that...
You have been handed all of this because I made sure that everyone got a copy of all of these pages. You didn't look at them.
No, I got your email.
No, this wasn't an email.
I did not get a packet like that from you.
Well, it wasn't from me, it was from the clerk.
Oh, I did get a packet via email with a bunch of scans in it, so that's probably what this is.
But
Is there a particular document you would like me to look at, or is it the packet entirety? Is it?
There are hundreds of documents I would like for you to look at, because it will take an overwhelming number of documents to convince you that there is any merit in these questions. And so that's why these are here. You can trace each one, each page is labeled. And all of you got it.
Can you help me in this? Do you want me to just go through each page individually as I've looked through, or is there a particular document you would like me to look at that raises the big red flag from a Marin Transit, Golden Gate Transit, or one of these that says, stop, don't do this project?
If you were looking for one red flag, take the 3-page executive summary of the
67-page report.
the traffic analysis.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. Was this report in its entirety in your packet?
No.
Okay,
I'm
so this
gonna
is the one
send
that
it-
I
If
would,
you want,
I
if
would
you
like,
want one, I can't boil
I'm
it
gonna
down to
send
one.
you,
but-
it's 67-page
That's fine.
report, and it's the one that wasn't on file in the city,
Mhm.
and it wasn't on file at Marin Transit, and the only way we got it is from Golden Gate Transit.
I would be more than glad.
And I think if you don't, I think if you read that, I think that would be a good thing.
I'd be more than glad to.
Okay, all right, let's just keep going so we don't get too hung up. I'm
Can
gonna
I
leave,
say,
yeah,
and it's a tiny thing, so when I started looking at this, Eric, because I'm absolutely the opposite of an engineer, there were a lot of things that were confusing, and each step allowed me to create a visual of what's going on. There are center platform designs for bus transit throughout the world, but what's unusual is very few cities give away a center median platform. When we put the original bus stop on Redwood, we had this huge street because it was originally a highway. Very rarely is that done, one because of jaywalkers, and two because you're giving up land is money. The center platform design is one issue. You can look other places and find center platforms, but what you can't find is a center platform in the middle of a street with 2 lanes of traffic on either side, where buses are going to use a contraweave design in order to get in and out of traffic. The 67-page report will help you understand why that's not a good plan. And the fact that Golden Gate did that is a real blessing, because everyone else just keeps wanting to push forward and saying it's a good plan, not because they're bad people, but ultimately transit believes in center platforms. The second issue that was terribly confusing was the Calgary Gate. A Calgary Gate is apparently a way of creating a crosswalk, so as you're crossing traffic and traffic's coming from your left, you realize as you get to the next leg of bus traffic, so you cross 2 lanes of street traffic, then you get to 2 lanes of bus traffic because of the bypass lane, and suddenly traffic's coming from your right. The Calgary Gate has to turn your entire body so you don't forget that the buses could hit you from the right rather than the left in order to get to the center platform. With the existing setup that we have right now, we avoid those obstacles because our most widely used transit right now are our shuttles. Shuttles are local, shuttles are used by kids, shuttles are used to get around Novato. Only 5% of Novato uses transit to go to work in the rest of Marin County. We use half of what the county rate is for buses. So you're taking the people that are using shuttles away from the sidewalks. Right now, they hop on the shuttles via the sidewalks and get where they're going, and you're forcing everybody into the center platform. That's the issue, that's the primary safety issue that I got from Pam's readings. I think we've all read what everyone else has researched because we've been so grappling with this, trying to make sense of it, because none of the original information that came from Paul Price, who's part of Mark Thomas and Associates, explained anything. So it's like going in as a layman, but building a real visual picture. So don't let it be a stumbling block when they say, well, you have a really unusual configuration in Nevada, we can't give you that, but center platforms are good. Well, we've got a Calgary Gate, it all but compensates for the fact that people are going to have traffic coming from one direction and then suddenly have to turn in the other direction to account for buses. You have to really open your mind to the idea that maybe the data from Golden Gate Transit is more spot on in terms of saying, why take a really simple bus stop that actually works if it were upgraded with amenities and turn it into something very complicated that's going to rely on a system of stoplights, basically to function. Multiple stoplights, not just the stoplights right now that we have on either end of that block. Now, the other thing that doesn't get covered in any of this that is in traffic reports, and I can't remember, Pam, which pile that's from, but we right now have, I think, a grade B level of service at that intersection. When this thing gets built, with the complexity that's involved, we drop to a level D. Now, D is acceptable, but I don't know if you went to that one workshop that we had on North Redwood where there was a traffic consultant who was raising a ruckus because he was going, it may be acceptable to you, but D is not acceptable when you're sitting in a car. I had to learn that stuff too because I didn't understand what it meant. So you've also got a picture in your mind creating something this complex in a location that impacts traffic already. So we already have those issues. So if you could just, not necessarily be biased against public transit, because I am a supporter of public transit, it's look at the holes in the project and ask yourself, could we slow down enough to really examine these holes, because we do need to build something that's going to work. And that's what Pam's trying to tell you. We want something that works. We want a dress that zips and that you can walk around in and that isn't going to create problems. This right now has issues, and I don't know why our own city engineers aren't talking about them. That confused me, having come from the CVTP, because when I read that last report, I was really stunned.
And just so you know, if you look at all the projects that are center median bus stops, the buses have left-hand side doors. So they have left-hand and right-hand side doors. And they're mainly used in big cities because the buses are very expensive. And there's a constant ongoing maintenance problem because the thing that breaks all the time is the door because it's opening and closing. But this is a way to not put left-hand doors in the buses, because if you put left-hand doors in the buses, you wouldn't have to weave, right? You could pull up right alongside and go from there. So that, you know, that's the difference, is what we're doing is we're jury-rigging something in probably the most complicated manner. And I you know, I struggle because I'm a citizen. I'm not a city council member. And I'm doing all this research on this. I really struggle with that, where I have to go and take a look at all this stuff. I want to get back to enjoying my backyard and going to my grandson's baseball games, and know that somebody's looking at this in an intelligent manner. And, you know, to me, we're building something that has never been done in a footprint like that, because Golden Gate and Marin Transit don't want to buy a left-hand door.
You know, my most paranoid fantasies say that this is tied to something else.
Real quick, I just want to do just a quick time
8
check.
o'clock, yeah.
I've got to be somewhere at 8 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
I've got about probably 20 more minutes,
Okay.
just so we're
All right, all right.
So does the bus yard, the placement of the bus yard, have any tie whatsoever with this project?
I don't know. I know this project is in the same location of where the current facility is, so I don't know if that would, what connection there would be to that or
Well,
not.
Lauren Grady has sent us some emails about the bus yard, and I was like, what's this in here for?
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. Now, this is really Tina's, because Tina was part of the CBTP. I don't know if you know that.
Mhm,
but
absolutely.
And she was a valued member, as I understand it. And she's struggling with the fact that, you know, we said, why are you doing this? And you said, well, it really needed to be done. And, you know, so you spent $175,000 and you did it. The number one thing in that report, where 93% of the people said trying to get to the bus stops is the most important thing, okay? They asked for a whole bunch of things, GPS signs, they asked for, you know, a safe crossing, They asked for that shelter to be renovated, other best stops to be approved. Now, this money that you're gonna be taking, Lifeline funds, all of that could be used to better this entire system. Not just that station, this entire system. So you can make improvements all over Novato's bus system with that money rather than pouring that amount. So I guess the question, we went out and we asked the bus riders what they really needed. They came back and they told you what they really needed. And then we're doing a huge bus stop that was in no way asked for by the people that are riding the buses. Now, I don't know if you feel like, well, we gotta have the vision to give them something they don't know what they need, but I guess the question is, why aren't we just giving them what they're asking for with the Lifeline funds that are supposed to be taking care of the people, that the only way they can travel is by bus?
Yeah. Going back to when, I believe Marin Transit hired a consultant, I believe it was it the 75,000 or the 300,000, they did an assessment and they identified this facility in Novato as one that needed to be updated through public outreach, through consultants, through, that's how this project ended up on the map even in the first place.
Right.
And that was many, many years ago. That's what got this started. Now, if there was an additional study with CBTP that provides a different input from residents, that might very well be the case. But there also is another study that states you need to improve this facility. And at that point, it projected.
Let's do it.
Nobody's disagreeing with you at all. We're disagreeing with taking a design that's never been used and creating something that there is no proof that it's going to actually work.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're arguing with. There's everybody in this room right now would support you 100% if you said, I'm going to take the existing footprint like was suggested in 2010 and we're going to improve it.
Mm-hmm. If this design gets built as is, and 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, it's an overwhelming success, would you take it?
No.
Well, let me ask you this. You know Monte Carlo, have you ever heard of Monte Carlo simulation?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. All right. So,
But I hope you'd answer my question.
no, I will. No, I'm going to get back to it, but I just have to say. So, I'm just going to summarize. You're building something that isn't anywhere else. It has no proven track record. You do not know what the safety record of it is. So you know how Monte Carlo simulation works? Mm-hmm. You put in the factors that you know and the stuff you don't know makes it less predictable.
Yep.
Okay? So I would say if this works and it's grandiose and is great 10 years from now, that the decision you're making right now on is like flipping a nickel and saying if it's heads I'm going to build it and if it's tails I'm not going to build it. And I could probably, if I wanted to spend the money and take the time, I could run a Monte Carlo simulation for you and put all these factors into it. And I think you would see exactly, and you use them, you know them, and I take it you do know them.
Yeah.
And there are enough unknowns here. And after I've heard in 1 million city council meetings, we don't know what we don't know. Well, you don't know what you don't know here, okay? And the fact that you feel good about this doesn't change the amount of uncertainty that is involved in this project right now. So if I'm going to answer your question, if 10 years from now this is the best bus station in the world, I will say you got there by flipping a nickel and saying I'm going to build it because it's going to be heads.
Mm-hmm. I'd give a little more credit to everybody that said this is the right choice. Not the council, I'm talking about Golden Gate, Marin Transit, the consultants, and everybody that said, we've done our due diligence,
You better read that Golden Gate Transit report.
So
A
this
different
one,
response, hold on. I can't, because my kid's in a wheelchair in 10 years and I can't get to the stop. So no, I won't be using it. I want it built for him. I want, when I die, for him to be able to use transit if he can't afford to have a car that's gonna drive him. So my problem isn't your stop. My problem is I can't get him there, Eric.
Mhm.
And nothing in this plan gets him there. And we have massive problems, and the two reports you mentioned, the 2011 report and the 2015 CBTP both say people who are handicapped cannot get to that stop. So why are you giving me a stop I can't get the people to that need it the most? That's my biggest objection to this right now. We're putting all the eggs in one basket. We're taking a capital improvement plan, we're pouring millions of dollars into it, and all those tinier plans that came out of the CBTP are gonna get shoved to the side. And we both know how money works. It comes and it goes. Novato will get this chunk and everyone will go, oh, you got all that money. Now we gotta give it to someone else. And we won't ever get the people to the stop. So what if there's a compromise? What if there's a way to build a better stop than what we have now? And then build a way to reach the stop for people that have mobility issues.
Tina, I want them both too.
Okay.
And I believe the CBTP put the wheels in motion to allow us to secure other funding to address those other needs that we have. And we know that by having that plan, it's possible Novato is now gonna be in a position to go after funds to fix those needs. I want those fixes as well. I was on that same walk that Jean and Pat talked about with Peter. I know Peter well. I've talked to Peter about this specific project. He wants this project. He wants the roads fixed too. I want the roads fixed, and I want, it's not that I'm choosing one over the other. I want them both as well. That's one of the reasons why I got involved as a city councilman in the first place, because I grew up here in Novato. This is my hometown. I have a vested interest. I want to make Novato the best place it can be for all of our residents.
Then read Pam's packet and with a sincere curiosity for the problems that exist, because I know we can all at this table be difficult at times, but it's difficult because we want things done well, not poorly. And where you have more faith in the way government operates, I was really shocked at things that after I repeatedly asked people in really nice ways and had great conversations with, do you have this information? And they would say, no, there's been no studies done. And then suddenly there's a 67-page report. I
It was
don't
done in
understand.
November of last year.
Yeah.
And I
Okay, well,
can't
we
find
want
it
things
outside.
done well, and we want things done tomorrow too. And my own, personal opinions in certain areas, I think I've been on the council this is my 4th year now on the council. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about how things move sometimes. The SMART project, I was on that board for 2 years. I had mixed opinions about SMART originally. I didn't see much happening unless you could connect it to Larkspur, and even then, there was a time when I was not in favor of it going to Larkspur if the Larkspur terminal was going to be on the other side of Sir Francis Drake and not right in the ferry terminal. To me, that just didn't make sense, and I was of a mind of, I wouldn't even spend money to build it there because I'd rather get extra money and get it right to the ferry terminal. Sometimes things don't work that way, and you come to a point where it's, you know what, I'd rather see something get done than nothing at all. And it's like that on some projects, and it can be discouraging, it can be disheartening at some time. I totally agree with that.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
And we'll let you out of here. We asked, what features are being included in the center platform designed to stop jaywalking, which is the elephant in the room, because you've got opposing traffic. So if you're not in the Calgary gate, you could be crossing the road and suddenly a bus comes out of nowhere, okay? And you said, improvements should make the designated crossings more visible and easy to use, hoping this will help deter jaywalking. It isn't, Eric. If you go there and when you read this W Transit study, they recognize right away that there is a jaywalking problem, and there's going to continue to be a jaywalking problem. And now buses and cars are coming from the opposite direction. So the kid looks over, and I would say it's mainly elderly people and young kids are going to look over, and young kids are the first people to jaywalk. We all know that. I mean, I want to pound my grandson on the head when I see him jaywalking. But The kid is gonna look over and see no cars coming and go running across, and there's gonna be a bus coming the opposite way. And the Calgary gate isn't gonna save him. It isn't gonna happen. And so we're not gonna stop jaywalking. So basically, we're creating an inherent unsafe condition that we can't just hope that people don't jaywalk. So, I mean, I really appreciate your thought on that. To me, it's the major safety issue.
People are gonna jaywalk, it's gonna happen. When you drive past that bus terminal, bus hub now, and it's got the mid-block crossing, do you slow down a little bit, personally?
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
So do I, because
But a lot of people don't.
because I know that area and I know that somebody could dart right out of there. And I know that area because I've been in Novato a long time and I'm familiar with that area. And I've seen it happen. Even when I'm driving and I come up and I'm on a 2-lane road, and this happens a lot, I'm on a 2-lane road and there's a car stopped right in the middle of the road. I don't just veer around them. I know from experience as a driver, that car's probably stopped because there's somebody walking in front of them. So I don't veer around. So because of that, how much more experienced is a bus driver going to be in driving through that area, knowing, can I finish again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much more experienced should a bus driver be going through that area, especially when it is new? And not going, they're not gonna be going there very fast. And I believe that with that, there can be some safety improvements.
Wow.
Could I say something here? There are fences and there is shrubbery right now to prevent much of the jaywalking. There are concrete barrier walls that prevents much of the jaywalking. So what we have now is a fairly safe situation. What you're going to have with this new thing is there will be no barriers. There will be no concrete walls. There will be no steel railings. And the Calgary gate, there is no gate. It's all along on the street, no gate. So it's like night and day. What we have now is fairly serviceable, and what is in the design is incredibly unsafe.
So is the concern, I'm sorry, maybe I was addressing the wrong question. I heard the question about whether or not somebody is gonna get hit by a bus because the buses are traveling in a different direction than what people are used to.
No,
You're talking
we were
about
talking about
People
jaywalking.
crossing
Well,
Redwood,
we were talking about jaywalking.
getting into the facility.
Well, the best way to summarize it is if you're crossing from the west side to the east side of Redwood and Grant, in Redwood, okay, you're gonna cross 2 northbound lanes of cars going north.
Okay.
You're gonna cross 2 southbound lanes of buses, okay? When the bus is stopped and another bus is passing on the outside, coming from the opposite direction you expect it to, you're not gonna see it at all because the bus is gonna completely block this bus coming until you walk right in front of it, okay? At least in the car lanes, you're expecting something and you know what direction it's coming from. So we're opening up the whole block for people to cross this way at any point in time, and in the end, they gotta cross 8 lanes of alternating traffic direction, and the most dangerous is crossing the buses, because once a bus is stopped on the side that the other bus is coming around the other side from the wrong direction, you're not even gonna have a chance of seeing it. Now, if you can tell me how somebody's gonna know that bus is coming on the outside of the other bus and not step out in front of that, I would really like to know. I think if you ran a bunch of simulations of how this potentially would work. Now, what I understand is they did a whole simulation for buses, but pedestrians weren't involved with it,
Yeah, I'm not aware.
okay?
Correct.
Well, I tell you what, if you're making a change this big and this drastic and this radical, I would certainly think you'd want to model pedestrians moving around in this. I know you're.
Especially the shuttle, which is the most used by the youth. Yes, they're the most notorious for jaywalking.
Mhm.
So now they're gonna be, it'll be interesting to know what the youth ridership is for the shuttles now.
Yeah.
And when it's put in the center, how many kids will be crossing.
Anything different and anything that brings change, there are very valid concerns. I hope you don't think that I'm discounting it. I think they're very valid concerns. Is that a reason to completely change course at this point? I don't know. All right. So I really appreciate you taking the time. I want to continue to understand, and I'm more than glad to answer the question or ask the questions. And even when it comes before council, if you have a specific question that you feel needs to be answered, I am more than glad to answer that question or ask that question for you at that council meeting. Because I want to make sure that everybody gets the information. Like I said from the very beginning, I don't know that we're going to see eye to eye, but I want to at least be able to let you understand where I'm coming from with it. I want you to know that I'm doing my homework. I'm reading all the documents that get sent to me.
Well, wait, you
I-
hadn't read the one I sent you.
Well, you sent it yesterday, and I had a busy day all day, and then I went to 2 meetings, and I got home at 10 o'clock, and I had to do, so,
Okay.
All right.
And I understand you don't want to look through this kind of thing, but you got it many weeks ago.
yeah, no, I do want to look through it. I do want to look through it.
I
But-
wouldn't if I were you. It
I-
takes hours and hours
No,
and hours. I wouldn't want
I
to
am
do
more
it.
than glad to read it. We've been going through, when I have to decide and prioritize my schedule, I prepare for the council meeting at hand. As we get closer and closer to this being agendas, and being on our budget, on our agenda, I will look at all of it. And if there's something in particular, because it is a large packet that you sent, if there's something that you say, you know what, take extra special look at this one, so that I make sure that I'm looking at the things that you want me to look at. I mean, I'll read it all, but sometimes it helps to have an executive summary, or make sure you don't miss this page.
I'd
This
be
one-
happy to sit with you and turn through the pages.
Anytime. This one here, this executive summary, I look through it, I do not, at first glance, I do not see this as the overwhelming red flag. I see that they address the issues, and then they have a mitigation measure for them. So that's just, I haven't read it word for word, but that's my
And
initial
I'll
glance.
summarize what that is. You're taking something that isn't broke, you're fixing it, making it broke, and then you're coming up with a way to try to mitigate how you broke it.
Mhm. We probably disagree on that, but
Well,
that's a fair assessment.
Hey, we greatly appreciate you coming.
Yeah, absolutely.